Hey, congratulations, you're under contract, and you might be wondering, now what? So I'm going to go over a couple quick things on a sample contract here and tell you what comes next. So the first thing that we come across is what's called an alternative money, earnest money deadline right here, right? In this example, it is February 5th. So we scroll down a little bit to right below this section and it says land title. And we say, okay, we need to get, in this instance, $3,500 via personal check made out to land title to a land title office. Sometimes it'll be Chicago Title or First Integrity. So we go over to Google Maps, type in land title guarantee company, and find a location that is most convenient to you. And I've got this all sort of bunched up at the moment, but if we were to expand this out, we would see that there are land title offices, for example, all over the place. So any land title office will do. You just put the address in the memo line and wait for a receipt. And they'll also email me a receipt. But in this instance, $3,500 to land title on February 5th. The next deadline to come up that we want to really pay attention to is this inspection objection deadline. In this instance, it's February 9th. So today is Monday. That'll be on Friday. And when we go to search for section 10.3, the inspection is right here. And it says you have the right to inspect the property and you have a right to terminate based off the findings of the objection, or you can deliver an inspection objection asking the seller to correct something. And then we have a period known as the inspection resolution deadline, which is right down here. In this example, February 12th, which would be Monday. So if the inspection doesn't go well, you have a right to get out. If the inspection doesn't go well, you have a right to object and say, please correct, and then negotiate through me with the seller to find something that is amenable to you. So I usually provide a list of inspectors. I've got 2 or 3 that I really, really like. They're so good, in fact, they'll almost talk you out of buying a perfectly good property. But we'll get the property inspected, and on a you arrange that directly with the inspector. And people often ask, do I get there for the inspection? I'm not sure if you like anybody watching you work, but I know I don't, except for right now when I'm working and you're watching. But generally speaking, I say let the inspector do their job and show up maybe for the last half hour and ask them, how long is this going to take? When should I arrive if I want to just kind of walk the property with you? Because on a condo, there's not a whole lot to inspect, but on a single property residence, you want to know where the water shutoff valves are, where the sewer cleanout is, where the sprinkler head timers are, and what might be big red letters on their report, but really might not be that big a deal in real life. So you just kind of want to go through those things with the inspector. They won't give you the report until you pay. So this is something, when I say you can get your money back, this is not one of the places where you get your money back, because the inspector provided a service. We need to pay for that service. Likewise, let me rewind for 1 second to 4.3 with the alternative earnest money deadline. That money will be cashed, or that check will be cashed. So there needs to be money in the account where if you put a $3,500, $20,000, $50,000 as earnest money, the money needs to be in that account, because they will actually cash the check and hold it in an escrow account. And if there's any dispute, a neutral third party is holding it. So fast forward back to the inspection. The inspection's been done, and on a home, I always recommend doing a sewer and radon, not necessary in a condo. Pay for the report, we get the report. I review the report, you review the report. We both kind of come up with a list of what we think might be reasonable to ask for. I'll prepare an inspection objection, we negotiate. Let's say there's a nice resolution, maybe they say pound sand, but you still want the property. Maybe they say, hey, we'll give you $1,000, but we're not making any repairs. That's very common that the seller does not want to actually make the repair. They might just say cash in lieu, either cash off the purchase price or cash towards closing costs or credits, whatever. So the next deadline is the record title deadline. A lot of times this is just kind of a non-entity, but the title will come in this instance on February 9th, and the title company will provide sort of a list of history of the property. I personally don't do a whole lot of review of this, but there are attorneys out there that can do that for you, real estate attorneys. That's just not part of what a service that I offer as reviewing the title. The title generally just ensures that you have clean ownership of the property. And you can always ask the title company too for a little bit of feedback there. The next one here, the in this instance, the seller has until February 9th, which is Friday, to provide all the HOA documents. And so if we go here and we do a control F for section 7.3, 7.3 over here on the left says the seller to provide association documents. And it's conditional upon buyer's review. And the buyer can say, hey, you know what, your financials are a total mess. There's a special assessment coming up that you didn't tell me about. In general, kind of just take a moment to read through the meeting minutes, the notes, kind of get a feel for it. Nobody here that I'm expecting to be a financial expert on the financial spreadsheets. I'm not either. I will confess that straight up front. But what you can do is just kind of read through the meeting minutes, read through the meeting notes, just see if there's anything that's kind of funky going on with the HOA. And here we have a full 2 weeks from February 9th to February 23rd to review the HOA documents and present an objection. If we back out for the title, if we back out for the inspection, if we back out for the HOA, you get your money back. That is that's covered in the earnest money provision. So if we go up here and say section 4.3, the earnest money set forth in this section in the form of a personal check is held, and then return of earnest money. If the buyer has a right to terminate and timely terminates based off of any of these objection deadlines over here, then we can work that out. So that's where in section 4.3.2 is where the global provision for return of earnest money is presented for all of these objections and all of these possible resolutions. So in this instance, the buyer also has to present or has to apply for a loan on February 5th, okay? And we have until February 23rd to present any objections. If the lender drastically changes terms, if a big condition pops up that was a red flag that wasn't presented in the application, something that, there's major hiccup that we can no longer finance this property for some reason, we can back out and per 4.3.2 get earnest money back. On the appraisal, the lender will order the appraisal, and typically they're going to wait until after the inspection unless you say, hey, please proceed quickly. And a lot of times we'll need to do that because appraisals can take 2 or 3 weeks to order. Sometimes with a VA loan, they can be a week, but sometimes 2 or 3 weeks to order an appraisal. So I like to order those early, order my inspection right away as well, and then get through the inspection, but now we're on the timetable for the appraiser to be scheduled. Now let's say we go through the inspection, we object, there's no resolution, we terminate, we can still cancel the appraisal before it happens and there's no fee incurred. So we can do that. Next, so then we have an appraisal objection. So let's say the appraisal comes in. If the purchase price is $200, it appraises for $190. We have a chance to negotiate with the seller. They may say, I'm going to go back to market, and we say, hey, that's fine by me. Or they may say, hey, we're going to go back to market. We say, whoa, pump the brakes. We can come up with an extra $10,000. We'll bridge the gap. Sometimes that makes sense. So I'll help you cover that when that time comes. Property insurance. Property insurance, you need to apply for insurance and make sure that the property is insurable. There are some properties that are not insurable, and we want to make sure that this property is insurable. Typical cases of not insurable would be in the mountains if the trees are too close. Sometimes you won't be able to clear the trees and it's too big of a fire hazard. Sometimes it's just uninhabitable. So we need to check that through the insurance company. I used to be an insurance broker with Wave Financial. I'm not right now at the time of this filming, but a property and casualty insurance broker. And I went through Wave Financial because Wave Financial shops 25 carriers, and not only the first time, but every single year on your anniversary to make sure that you still have the best coverage at the best rate. So if you'd like, I can still present you with that application form. And generally speaking, you provide a declarations page, which is the first page of your car insurance, all your autos, any other homeowners that you might have, like if you have other investment properties, other primary properties, the declaration page for all of those, because bundling the rates gets you the best rate. So you'll fax back this form to me, all those declaration pages, I'll fax those on to Wave, and then Wave will get in touch with you. And I say go through me because someday I may reactivate my license, and getting a tiny $50 residual a year is nice. But we'll fax all that off to Wave. Wave will contact you and they'll walk you through the pros and cons of all the different levels of insurance and deductibles and everything else. If you own a single family home, even on a condo, research this. I highly recommend a flood insurance clause. Now, flood insurance is usually like $200 to $400 a year. It's not that big a deal, but it covers any water from the outside, any water through your roof, any water up the gutter, any water through a window, any water through the foundation wall. That is a flood. That is water coming from outside to inside. That is the cause, I would say, of about 70 to 80% of damage in a home. So please do yourself a favor. They'll say you're not in a flood zone. Say, I want flood insurance. Raise your hand, strong and proud. You heard it from me. Closing date in this instance will be February 28th, and this is going to be a specific time after the appraisal resolution and after the loan objection. The lender will provide to you documents and say, here are all your closing documents. And according to federal law and an acronym called TRID, which is like a Truth in Lending Disclosure, you have 3 days to object and review those documents. So they present them, you have 3 days before we can close. So when they present them, sign them immediately because our closing date hinges on that. And in this instance, the closing date and the possession date are the same. So that is kind of a run through of what a contract is. And oftentimes, and let me try to pull one up here, but I will go into a program here called Folio, and it's integrated via Gmail. And so one of the things that I'll do is I'll just pull up a kind of an example here, and I'm trying to find one that was done. But here was a closing timeline for 1301 South Ogden Street, deal I did earlier this year, last updated February 5th, 2018, which is today. But anyway, so I'll share it with the buyer, the seller, the listing agent, the title officer, my assistant, anybody who has something to do with the document or with something to do with the deal. And I will put in these dates, the inspection deadline, appraisal deadline, loan deadline, and we'll do those for you, okay? This example doesn't happen to be as complete as some others, but we jumped into it a little late in the game. So that being said, when you go into your Google Calendar, then you will see deadlines of here's your title deadline, here's your inspection deadline, here's your earnest money deadline. And if we're doing our job, and please grant us a little bit of grace if we're not. Sometimes it takes us a day or two to put this into the system. But you'll see this popping up and you'll get an invitation from Ometree or Folio, which will have all your dates and deadlines. But every time you see a reference here, such as section 4.3, all you have to do is go lower in the contract. And in this case, scroll down. I've got it pulled up side by side, but here is section 4.3. And here's covering earnest money and the return of earnest money. Now, a return of earnest money, again, happens at any one of these times. Record title objection, off-record title objection. That could be off-record is something like you grant someone the right to drive their tractor through your yard every day, but it's not on title. But they expect that to keep going on. Association documents, that's another chance. Loan objection, that's another chance. Usually there's no existing loan transfer, but appraisal objection. Title, if you have a single family residence and you want to check your lot lines and make sure your fence is in the right place. Inspection objection, due diligence objection, conditional sale deadline, if you have to sell before you buy, we put that in there. So all of those are ways to get your earnest money back, and then how that is handled is covered here in section 4.3.2 on return of earnest money. So I hope that helps. This is a brief little tutorial on how to read a contract and when you get your money back and what to do next. But right out of the gate, earnest money to the title company, and the title company is found right here in section 4.3. This is where you'll find your title company. You Google map it, drive it over, personal check in this amount, in this case it's $3,500, made out to this title company, and then wait for a receipt. That's step one. Step two is I will forward you my inspectors and I will help facilitate an inspection. That inspection gets paid for. In the meantime, your lender needs all their documents, taxes, bank statements, income statements, W-2s, 1099s, all of that. Anything your lender asks for, get it to them immediately. Immediately. The biggest hang-up on any loan is the buyer dragging feet on delivering documents to the lender. The lender, then say, hey, please go ahead, get in touch with my real estate agent. He'll tell you when to order the appraisal. The agent calls over, or the lender calls over. I say, hi, I'm Rick Jansen. Please order the appraisal right now. Our inspection is this date, but we're going to get past it this date. Call me when we schedule the appraisal. We move that forward. So it's inspection, pay for it, we get it, we review it. We get the HOA docs, we review them, we object or not. We get the appraisal back, we review, we object or not. And then we close. That's kind of the flow. So I hope that helps. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.